It's important to understand that practitioners are adding these additional scopes where and when it makes sense. And these insights help the foundation understand how they can support the community and practitioners.
One thing we got to look at is like step back, look at it from a holistic view. And initially, we are focusing on workload optimization. You're really trying to cut down on runaway costs. You're trying to make sure that there is no crazy cost spikes happening. You're trying to get the most for your get the most bang for your buck through savings plan, RI purchases, cut purchases, things like that.
I think that what we're seeing is a lot of companies that thought that they had a really solid grasp of their cloud costs. Now that we start to be able to kind of step into the world of AI, it introduces a completely new layer of complexity in our tech investment. So the shift now is really starting to be able to be like, hey, how do we understand the total cost of our AI workloads? Especially like some of the trade-offs that we have to be able to make between, training different types of models, models at different scales, weighing, training them on-prem, cloud environments. And I'm not even going to get into the absolutely nuanced world of inference.
Good morning, good afternoon, and we've got some people in the middle of the night joining us. My name is J.R. Stormont, and I am Executive Director of the FinOps Foundation, and it's really great to be back here for our first summit of 2025. We take the January summit off to get everything ready for this event, which is all about the data that we've collected at the end of last year, showing the state of the FinOps industry and how it's changed over the year. We are the FinOps Foundation. We are a part of the Linux Foundation. Myself and our team of almost 30 people work for the Linux Foundation, and our project is all about advancing the people who manage the value of cloud. We do that through connections and community. We do it with education and certification, which many of you have, and we do it with open source best practices and standards like the FinOps framework and also the Focus project. This last year has been really, really amazing to see the FinOps community grow. The community of participants in the foundation doubled over the last year to over 60,000 people around the world participating in our programs, over 30,000 of those in our practitioner SME community. And those companies involved represent 93 of the Fortune 100. We estimate about half of global cloud spending is represented in the foundation. It's really amazing to see this continued growth of the industry and of the discipline that all of you have worked together to build over these last 5 or 6 years. This summit over the next 60 minutes is going to cover a lot. This is one of for those of you who have been to these before, we like to pack in the content. We're going to make some announcements about upcoming events. We're going to introduce some new members. We're going to hear the bulk of the time about the state of FinOps and have a panel discussion about the content and the changes in the industry. So what I wanted to start with, though, is a photo or a couple photos from our event FinOps X last year. And really wanted to remind all of you, as you're all coming back from holidays and January being a rush time, and like us, many of you are starting to travel again, the importance of coming together in person with your peers, with your colleagues, with others in the industry, to connect, to learn, to grow. We are coming up on a whole series of in-person events, and this is the time to start thinking about your travel plans for the year. The first thing I wanted to announce, this is a brand new series. We are launching a series we're calling FinOps X Days around the world this year. This is going to be more opportunities to connect in person in key geographies. These are full day events. These are not meetups. These are not small evening events or small lunch events. These are full day events with keynotes, with breakouts, with chalk talks, and with evening networking. Not all of these are live yet for registration, but all the dates are listed. But if you go to x.finops.org and click on FinOps X Days, you can see more details, particularly on the first one. So the first one coming up is FinOps X Day London. That's April 1st at CodeNode. And this is just a small snapshot of this event. As you can see, we've got some fantastic lead speakers on this, some real legends in the FinOps UK community. And there's actually almost 20 people overall speaking at this event. Really going to go deep at a great venue with probably around 300 people in attendance at this event. So definitely look to join this one if you're in the UK, IE, or Europe, or look for the others as they come online throughout the year. But the big thing, of course, I wanted to talk to all of you about is FinOps X. So I'm not sure if you all realize, but FinOps X is 100 days away. It's actually a few weeks earlier in the month of June than it was last year. So if you were thinking, you're going to rock up on June 20th, you're missing the event by 3 weeks. It's going to be bigger this year, same venue, same forum, but we actually have the entire hotel event spaces this year. We only had about half of the hotel last year, so a lot more space, a lot more rooms available, a lot more attendees, a lot more content, and a lot more opportunities for you to connect in person with your peers. The events start on Monday. Big new add this year. We have a pre-con event, which happens Monday. It's sort of a mini conference before the conference. If you want to get there early, particularly international folks who are traveling, we encourage you to come and attend that pre-con event on the Monday, which will have its own set of content before the keynotes start on Tuesday, Wednesday keynotes, and going through to Thursday, as we've seen in previous years. So this is the time to go register. It's coming right up. Every FinOps X we've done has sold out. The rooms at the Marriott, the room block, are going to sell out the fastest. We have way more attendees this year than we have room. So if you want to not be taking an Uber 20 minutes every morning to get to the hotel, go grab a room and grab a ticket as soon as possible. We are just beginning to announce speakers for the event. This is a small selection of speakers who are being announced. Many of you submitted talks. Many of you. We had hundreds, literally hundreds of talks submitted for a very small amount of spots. Fantastic brands, fantastic stories, fantastic experts all over the world. There's going to be a lot of people we can't select because we're trying to get the right mix of content this year that aligns to the themes, to give new voices a chance to speak, to hear and new advanced stories, a lot of things. So there will be a lot of more speakers coming out in the coming weeks. There'll be a lot of updates coming around that. So watch the website, x.finops.org, as we finalize the speaker selections for breakouts as well as for Chalk Talks coming up. So the foundation has a fantastic backing from a number of different organizations around the world. Our members cover clouds, GSIs, major end user practitioners who manage cloud, as well as platforms and solutions. These folks, we're very excited to announce a few new members to this group, and we want to take a few minutes at the top of this, as we do at each summit, to welcome some of these new members to the foundation. Before I pass to the first one, which is going to be Alibaba Cloud, I wanted to highlight, we're going to do the first three intros. This is really amazing to see as FinOps has expanded. We've got a new cloud provider in a new region. We've got a hardware provider, and we've got a platform provider that covers areas often outside of the core FinOps constituency. So really amazing to see this collection and expansion. So wanted to welcome first and give him a minute to introduce himself, Barney from Alibaba Cloud.
Thank you, JR, and the foundation for having me here. Hello, everyone. I'm Barney Huang, and I lead the FinOps Solutions team at Alibaba Cloud. Last month, Alibaba Cloud joined as a premier member of the FinOps Foundation. Moving forward, we'll focus on two priorities. First, we'll help our customers optimize the cloud adoption and sharing FinOps framework and best practices from the community. Second, we'll focus on building and growing the FinOps community, leveraging our strengths, especially in the Asia Pacific region. If you are exploring FinOps solution for Alibaba Cloud or just want to collaborate, you can message me on Slack or LinkedIn anytime. Thank you. That's all. Back to you, JR.
Thank you so much, Barney. And Barney is joining at midnight his time. So extra special kudos and thank you for making the time to do that. Next up, would like to welcome actually back to the board, AJ Nish, who is now at NVIDIA after previously being board member with IBM Turbonomic. AJ, welcome back. Yeah, please reintroduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. As JR said, I'm very familiar with all things FinOps, having been on the board before for IBM. I'm really excited to join on behalf of NVIDIA and represent the NVIDIA team here. For NVIDIA, I wear a number of hats, but my primary job is leading product management for what we call the resource governance team inside of DGX Cloud, which includes FinOps. And our goal here is to help make sure that the internal NVIDIA teams are operating in the best way possible, and that we can take the learnings that we have, especially from a FinOps for AI perspective, and bring that back to the FinOps community so that everyone else can work with us collectively to make sure everyone is getting the maximum return on any investment made in AI. And to that end, really excited to work with everyone, really excited to be here again. I'm back on the FinOps Slack if anyone wants to talk to me, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you.
Thank you so much, AJ. Welcome back. Great to see you again. And next up of the three we're going to do, I want to welcome to the board Julian Flores from ServiceNow.
Thanks, JR, and hello, everyone. My name is Julian Flores. I lead product management for ServiceNow's asset management product team. And we're very excited to join the FinOps Foundation this year. We're very much looking forward to collaborating with many of you. So thanks, and hello, everyone.
Welcome. Excited to get all of you plugged into the various work streams and work groups coming up. And we will hear from the other new members on the next summit to keep us moving into the content. Welcome also to Adaptive 6 and Do It, who also are now premier members of the foundation. So these folks are joining the FinOps Foundation Governing Board, which is made up of, as I mentioned, a mix of clouds, practitioner end users, GSIs, platforms, and others who help us drive our industry strategy and support investments into the community education programs and best practices. One of those programs that the Governing Board supports financially is the Focus Project. Focus is actually set up within the Linux Foundation as a standalone entity. It's actually its own Delaware Corp to protect it as standalone open source specification. And I wanted to give a few minutes to our good friend Sean Alpe, who is part of the FinOps Foundation staff with the Linux Foundation, who is the working group chair, to tell us about the latest in the FinOps Open Costs and Uses specification. Over to you.
Hello. As JR said, I'm the working group chair, and I'm here to give you a whistle-stop tour of some of the resources that we have on the website and give you a bit of a summary of where we are with adoption. So what you can see here on the screen is where we are in terms of adoption. We have the four major clouds of AWS, GCP, Microsoft, and Oracle. We're happy to announce that Tencent is now supporting the Focus spec with 1.0. You can see here a matrix of what they support in terms of 1.0 versus 1.1. And if you're wondering about conformance gaps that are self-reported, you can go and see those links on the website as well. So if you go to that link at the bottom, you can see all that information. Next slide. We have a couple of other pieces of information to share with you. These are stories of implementations from various organizations. Some of these talks were given at FinOps X in Barcelona. Some of these were from FinOps X last June. Really would encourage you to watch some of these. It's really cool to see how people are adopting Focus in various ways. We also have a separate playlist on YouTube that describes how Focus is made, how Focus is done. So if you're interested in seeing how the sausage is made, I would really encourage you to watch some of these talks from maintainers on the project and see how Focus moves forward. I want to call your attention to our Focus Sandbox that we've mentioned before. This is where you can query some of our use cases with real anonymized data and then have it spit out on the screen. You can see with that arrow there, there's a link to sample data in a GitHub repository. So if you want to actually touch and feel real anonymized Focus data, I really encourage you to go there and give it a look. You can download it in small chunks or the whole thing. Finally, I want to give you an overview of our roadmap. You can see our previous releases here. You can see we're working on 1.2 right now. Amongst other things, we're really going to target in on supporting SaaS data. That's driven from various signals, including some information from the State of FinOps that you'll hear about in just a minute here. But we'll be announcing 1.2 in June. So look forward to that at FinOps X. That's everything I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. That was indeed a whistle-stop tour. A lot happening in Focus. I encourage you all to get involved and to turn on the data with your respective cloud provider. So to the main point of all of you being here, exciting to see 1,000 people on the Zoom and the rest of you joining on the live stream. Wanted to pass the time over to Steve Trask, who is the COO of the FinOps Foundation and has been with us since 2021 and has led every State of FinOps since then to walk us through what we learned this year in the data, what we found, and tee up the panel discussion coming shortly. Over to you, Steve.
Thanks, JR. Hi, everyone. it's great to be back. I wanted to start saying thanking everyone who's contributed to this year's report. As always, it's much appreciated. It really does support and inform a range of activities and programs across the community. In this report, we're going to look at the current and future priorities and what is needed to overcome these from a practitioner perspective. We'll look at scopes of technology spend, which has been added to the framework recently, intersecting disciplines, cloud sustainability, tooling types, managing AI spend, and more. But first, let's cover some details about the report itself. This is the 5th annual State of FinOps report survey. As a reminder, there are no paid responses in the survey, and it is community sourced. All the respondents represented 69 billion in cloud spend, but also 32 billion in SaaS spend. Key industries continue to be finance and technology sectors, with retail and telecoms also well represented, but it's good to see kind of additional industries coming in, such as mining. The regions represented are reflective of the foundation community itself, but there is a stronger representation from North America this year compared to previous years. A few points on the demographics. Respondents were obviously focused on managing their cloud and other infrastructure investments, and included a good representation from enterprise organizations, with 31% currently spending more than $50 million a year in public cloud, and 41% from organizations more than 20,000 employees. This really shows the depth and the quality of the community and the responses. So let's dive in. First up, we asked practitioners what their current priorities were. Workload optimization and waste reduction is the clear current top priority for FinOps practitioners, followed by full allocation of spend and forecasting. Optimization was top priority in 2024, if those remember, but obviously it's remained a priority for 50% of respondents, while other capabilities have waned compared to last year. This shows how organizations are really doubling down in this area, maintaining focus on optimizing their investments. At the other end, the current lowest priorities are staffing and acquiring talent, along with reporting on cloud carbon. Now we looked at the future priorities and how that kind of looks to shift over the coming 12 months. Workload optimization and reducing waste drops a significant 21% to being second, to implementing governance and policy at scale, taking the top priority. This could be related to the maturity of the previous optimization efforts, as the longer you have done optimization, the more you realize you need governance and policy to further those efforts, as the low effort optimizations are easy to tackle, while policies, process, and automation are aligned to more maturity as a practice. Highest changes for future priorities, managing AI, ML spend is up 11%, managing cost beyond public cloud and getting to unit economics, both up 10%. And it's also worth noting the increasing enabling automation. So some movements there. We've got some movements coming in the next 12 months. Again, we see the lowest priorities, staffing and acquiring talent and reporting on cloud carbon. We will be covering cloud sustainability in a few slides further on to look at, give some deeper insights to that position. Now we looked at what do practitioners need to achieve their top priorities. This was a free-form response, which we have categorized all the answers. Organizational alignment, for example, leadership buy-in, has reduced from last year, but still remains the most needed path to achieve these priorities. It was investment and tooling that had the largest increase, like 20% increase from last year. Example responses were time, upskilling, tooling, and specific calls out to automation. So buy-in has kind of taken effect and reducing that as a issue and a challenge. But now the focus is shifting onto the resourcing and the productivity, where the FinOps practitioners are being potentially asked to do more with the same resources as demands have increased. Moving on, we asked, what are you actively trying to improve and just to maintain in the next 12 months? This was measured in effort. Responses showed that the average number of capabilities practitioners were looking to increase effort in was close to 12, where only decreasing effort in about 1 or 2. This is a sign practitioners potentially have a full workload, and are looking for that investment in the practice, hence the objective with the challenge. Currently, they risk stretching themselves thin. The FinOps framework itself, is flexible with building blocks for the practice, and practitioners should be willing to let more capabilities lose effort to maximize impact on the most valuable opportunities they have. This is an indicator FinOps teams need to increase productivity or resources. Then this could happen in many ways, even potentially kind of looking at how they apply AI to FinOps tasks to be more productive. Okay, let's move on to tooling. I know we're moving quickly. We've got a lot to get through. This year, we did not ask about specific tooling solution. The foundation is not here to rank or score tooling. We did ask on what types of tools are being used. This resulted in a wide range of 24 combinations of tooling in total. Here you see the top 7 combinations. The weighting of usage within each tool, these combinations will be different for each practitioner. But we found that practitioners were mixing upwards of 3 different types of tooling. This relates to the previous year's data, where we found out that the average 4 tools used, because you can have more than 1 tool per type. As you would expect, the majority of the combinations have a base of the cloud provider tooling. They're shown in the blue. Over half of all combinations use homegrown reports, which in itself can vary from kind of simple to complex. As you can see from the green blocks there, is dominant within the top 7 combinations here. While the most common combination was 19% of respondents, it does not include vendor tooling. However, just over half of all responses incorporated a vendor solution. Only CSP tooling was more popular, and those that picked a vendor solution, it was most likely to be their primary tool used. While these are the most common combinations, not one combination was kind of far and away. There is a long tail of different makeups, and this really shows that each practice makes their own combination to fit around their requirements and their organizational needs and their policies. Next, we're moving on to Cloud. Cloud Plus, managing more scopes of spending. When asked about what areas of technology spend do the FinOps teams manage today and are planning to in the next 12 months, we saw the highest here, managing SaaS spend, a total of 65 responses. It also includes the highest predicted increase in the next 12 months of 25%. It's important to understand that practitioners are adding these additional scopes where and when it makes sense. And these insights help the foundation understand how they can support the community and practitioners. Connected to this data, it shows how it aligns to focus specification, as Sean previously covered, especially in the upcoming 1.2 release, is about adding SaaS-specific columns. There is a definite need from practitioners, and this data is really leading us to this. Second highest was licensing with 49%, which includes a 21% increase over the next 12 months. Then it was followed by private cloud and data center, and of planned increases of 15 and 14%. It's good to understand what types of spend practitioners are managing and planning to manage, but we wanted to dig a bit deeper into the capabilities they are applying to these areas. Take a quick break. This showed practitioners are applying fundamental capabilities in the additional scopes of spend. So these are capabilities in the understanding cost and usage and quantify business value domains of the FinOps framework. These are key to strengthening practitioners' understanding, so you can get their arms around these new areas of spend. So if you see the understanding cost domains are in the orange, quantified value is in the kind of yellow here, it really does cover the majority of the top capabilities being applied. Our expectation is, as maturity grows within this area, we start seeing optimization also appearing in these top capabilities across the scopes of spend, as optimization opportunities appear within specific financial moments across these technologies. Related to scopes of spend, there are some real-world examples of practitioners managing SaaS and other scopes of spend at community events. I encourage you to kind of look at these, from practitioners from Booking.com, Under Armour, Avalara, Meta. We are expecting to see more at FinOps X in June as well. So I do encourage you to kind of engage with the assets we have, and also kind of come to the events and hear and listen to other practitioner stories on this. Now we touch on Focus, the open source billing specification. When asked, how are you planning to use Focus in the next 12 months? Only 18% are not planning to adopt Focus at all. 24% are still figuring out the plans, while 57% answered they have plans to use Focus. Of those planning to use Focus, more than half are looking to automatically integrate it into their data pipelines. A third plan to use a third-party tool or service when it becomes available within that tool. 16% plan to use it for just manual data analysis. However, there are challenges with adoption of Focus. We collected this within free-form answers. It came back limited time and skills were raised again, no stretched resources, while others are awaiting adoption from billing generators and vendors and SaaS providers. They want to get that full kind of integrated billing, plus restrictions on internal policies and getting that internal buy-in. So there's work to be done, but positive signs for Focus. Next, we have cloud sustainability as a topic, which previously, if you remember last year's, gave us data to say there was going to be high growth in this area. However, we haven't seen that from the priorities at all, as we expected it to rise. So when we looked at how many practitioners are reporting, as in providing metrics on cloud sustainability, we see the overall globally it remained very similar to last year, with 1% difference in those reporting highlighted in green, and then those not reporting shown highlighted in the red. That there's been an 18% increase in those reporting when you specifically look at the European region. This is not as high as previously predicted. North America had, which was the largest segment of respondents, remained flat in terms of cloud sustainability reporting. In other areas like South America, South and Central America, and Asia, respondents decreased in reporting compared to last year, balancing out that global picture. So this year we wanted to understand, as it was such a high growth predicted area last year, what does reporting and optimizations look like from a sustainability perspective? When asked, how does FinOps and cloud sustainability teams intersect in your organization today? Very few, just 3%, are basing any optimizations on carbon, and the majority not having any interactions with the sustainability team. When the practitioner is providing data, it's primarily based around the current usage, stated by 18% respondents globally. Another segment of respondents, which equates to 15% globally, are those where optimizations are based on cost, and the reduction in carbon is then shared with the sustainability team. So further, we wanted to understand what is the driver for the sustainability reporting. Obviously, it's a lower priority for some. This is where we collected those free-form responses to understand and categorize them. Regulation and organizational policy is clearly the driving force for sustainability reporting. Any changes to regulation or timing of implementation clearly has an impact on practitioners reporting that carbon data. 11% responded around culture. This included cloud sustainability helping engage engineers to take action, or company culture, as it was important to employees, for example, but not a formal policy. A small percentage was focused around specific parts of their infrastructure, some beyond cloud, for example. So someone was specifically calling out targeting a specific data center they knew was a high contributor to carbon emissions. And that's what they focused on because they knew that would have the biggest impact. Again, we have some interesting assets on this, especially from FinOps X Europe, and some real-world experiences shared from Adventa and Etsy. So you can dig into more details around this topic if you're looking for more answers. Moving on to the hot topic area, due to the rapid increase in investment and need for management spend, we're going to look at FinOps for AI. When asked about planned investment areas for the next 12 months, the large majority is weighted towards public cloud offerings in AI, and also 30% planned investment in data center and private cloud. This really is not a single technology investment, with 97% of respondents investing in multiple areas. This shows how managing an organization's AI spend crosses over into different infrastructure areas, introducing those new scopes of spend to practitioners to manage. If we took a view on this from the financial services industry, the biggest segment of respondents responded that AI investments, not only did the AI investments increase overall, but compared to other industries combined, but also show heavier investment in data center and private cloud. And for those managing AI, if we look at how many respondents were managing AI, this has significantly increased from last year, from 31% to 63%, reflecting the scale of investment in AI that's happening happening, this really underpins that priority shift in the earlier slides. In the coming 12 months, we expect this to grow. In addition, for those not actively managing AI spend, the vast majority have planned investments over the coming 12 months, so would expect to start managing those investments. So we expect this to continue to increase to around 96% of practitioners will have some management of AI costs next year. So it's the rate of increase that is really the story behind this. It's rapid increase due to the rapid investment in this area. When asked about what capabilities are being used to manage AI, practitioners are putting the fundamentals again in place, the basic understanding and the visibility into that investment. In addition, anomaly management is high. Unexpected cost spikes are potentially far greater in AI than any other area. Optimization capabilities are being used, but we again expect this to increase in the coming 12 months as organizations get the fundamentals in place to start align AI spend to overall value of business goals. If we put this in the context of the other infrastructure, as you can see from this slide, AI follows a similar pattern to other infrastructure and scopes, aligning to understanding cost and usage, to quantifying business value domains, again, in the orange and yellow, as the key is to strengthening their understanding. Again, it feels like they're just trying to get their arms around this spend before moving on to those more complex optimization and understanding which levers they can pull. Related to the FinOps AI, there's some real world examples. Intuit and Grammarly had a great talk at FinOps X. There's also just recently published a FinOps A from the FinOps for AI working group has just launched an overview paper, and we look forward to training on this topic as well. Next, we touch on FinOps aware product decisions, where practitioners are moving the cost and value discussion earlier in the product lifecycle. We asked, when in the product lifecycle do you bring in the FinOps team to discuss costs? This showed 59% of respondents get involved in multiple points of the lifecycle for different products or features. This reflects practitioners are being selective about when they're coming in to discuss costs. However, there's still a lot of work to be done here. 23% are only brought in post-deployment. They don't come in at all earlier in the life cycle. A key challenge from respondents to this trade-off of time required for the discussions and cost modeling, therefore slowing the time to market and developer velocity. It seems being selective to when to engage is happening. But it'll be interesting to see this year on year. Is this very static, or is this kind of improving over time? Myself, I was quite surprised at how many people are being selective and engaging across the different sections of the life cycle. Okay, this is the last slide, but it's an important one. It shows the 2023 data versus current data on separate teams collaborating closely. These are shown in the green, and then those with the unified team or process shown in the purple, both showing the change between the years. This is how the intersecting disciplines work together. So this shows how team alignment is increasing in most areas, and collaboration is increasing, the increase between the green bars. And the biggest increase is in ITFM and ITSM. However, collaboration has been nearly flat with TBM and sustainability and ESG teams since 2023. With a higher percent of increase in unification within those teams, rather than the collaboration increasing at the same rate. Again, we are looking to see how this data next year, and if this is a trend that continues, and we'll be tracking it closely. So to cover the kind of main points we have on the state of FinOps. FinOps is as important as ever, providing value from cloud and increasingly other technology investments where the majority of practices are beginning to manage SaaS spend, with nearly half managing licensing. While optimization remains a top priority for cloud spend, it's again understanding those costs, quantifying the value across these different scopes of spend. So what is a priority on your cloud spend, but you might have other priorities on other technologies of spend. So it's hard to have one capability as a top priority. Practitioners are, again, being asked to do more with these current additional scopes. They're going to get additional AI spend to kind of manage. There is a risk of being stretched thin without additional investment, upskilling, staff augmentation, how do you increase productivity within those capabilities? Again, AI spend is now being managed by the majority of respondents, again, with those increases predicted for next year as well, for everyone managing AI spend by next year. And it's important how we kind of manage that cross infrastructure investment from a practitioner perspective. Thank you very much. I welcome any questions. I'm always on Slack. Please feel free to reach out. I know there's the website going live, but I'm interested to hear the panel discussions as well.
Thank you so much, Steve and team who worked on this. This is about a 6-month project every year that pretty much restarts as soon as we finish the previous one. So exciting to see all this data come together. I know there have been a lot of questions in the chat. I've got some questions as well, but we wanted to get into a quick conversation with some panelists about what they're seeing in their own organizations related to this. We'll probably also bring Steve in for some questions here if there's data clarifications, but want to do a quick round of introductions, starting with Usha Ganesh, who is Senior Director of Infrastructure at EA, and I think at a new company, Usha, since last time we saw you.
Yes, that has been here for 3 months, still learning the ropes, so it's pretty exciting to be at EA.
Welcome back, Usha. Also welcoming Dinesh Sonawane from VP of FinOps from Workday. Dinesh, give me a quick intro.
Hi there. Yeah, been at Workday for 5 years now and matured the practice. A lot to learn from this survey, though.
Thank you. Welcome back, Dinesh. And also Brent Segner from Capital One, Distinguished Engineer. Brent.
Thank you. Yeah, so Brent Segner, Distinguished Engineer, Capital One, involved in all things performance, cloud costs, and optimization. So really happy to be here.
Well, great to have this panel of folks who've been doing this work for a long time, and I'm really keen to get your insights and thoughts on some of the data. So I'm going to pull back up some of the slides that we had from Steve's presentation, and Steve, feel free to jump in if I mischaracterize anything. But this one I want to bring up because workload optimization, waste reduction, came back up as the top priority for practitioners. This is always interesting because people really care about optimizing costs and finding efficiencies, but they're also really, really, really caring about all the other things of understanding cost, forecasting, alignment, organizational policies, et cetera. So I wanted to ask you, this goes from workload being first, and then it moves in a minute to some changes with governance being first. What's happening in your own practices? Does this mirror what you're seeing? Is it different? And let's start with Dinesh on this one, then we'll go to Usha.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yes, first, workload optimization is a top priority for us at Workday. We are building our homegrown tool to highlight all the optimization right-sizing opportunities. So for us, it's a journey, right? We started off with really focusing on unit price reduction by commit-based discounts, coverage, really getting that up. Then we moved on to identifying waste, getting engineers to act on it, but then that got automated via policy implementation. And now the tooling has moved on to identify resources, whether they are right-sized, what we call as well-architected principles. So for us, we think of this like climbing a mountain, right? And a mountaineer establishes base camps at various levels as they climb the tall mountain and get acclimatized to those conditions. So for us, we think of it similarly. We've graduated through all the different phases. Now, right-sizing the workloads, establishing the well-architected principles, that takes time. And we think that by, let's say, next year, this time, we will have moved on to the governance phase such that we don't have to just highlight the changes. The engineers are building them as part of their engineering practices such that this waste is constantly, or right sizing is constantly administered.
Okay, so sort of moving from a reactive to a proactive approach, it sounds like, and more of a FinOps aware product decision. That's great. Usha, how about you? Does this align to what you're seeing in your experience?
Yeah, like I cannot speak to EA specifically because of NDA issues, but I can definitely contribute from my experience with multiple organizations, right? The way I look at it, workload optimization and waste reduction, that's kind of the bread and butter of FinOps, right? The glamorous side, the instant gratification you get from turning certain knobs and buttons off, and then you immediately see a reduction in cost. That's kind of where the glamour stays, or your dopamine hits, if you want to call it that. But different as we mature, in different organizations and go from like a crawl maturity of a FinOps organization to a more mature organization, one thing we got to look at is like step back, look at it from a holistic view. And initially we are focusing on workload optimization. You're really trying to cut down on runaway costs. You're trying to make sure that there is no crazy cost spikes happening. You're trying to get the most for your get the most bang for your buck through savings plan, RI purchases, cut purchases, things like that. But then as you progress, as you mature, what's happening is proper governance is seen as a need of the hour. So you're looking at tagging standards, you're looking at governance policies, you're looking at providing architectural guidelines and standards so that as we go from greenfield, we're already putting in the guardrails in place. We're already putting best practices in place to say, hey, let's make sure we are optimized at the time of build, at the time of design, rather than go and catch up and play catch up with the brownfield. So while the greenfield is being addressed through governance policies and standards, the brownfield is something we can constantly go and do cleanup, if you will. And over time, the hope is you get better. But then again, like we called out last year, there are no runners. It's a constant iterative process.
Never really done at FinOps. That's true. I wrote down the dopamine hit of optimizing. That's such a great metaphor for it. Everybody wants to chase that high, but then there's a bunch of other work that you also have to do as well. So, Brent, let's go to you. I mean, what's your experience and why do you think this shift is happening from just optimization to governance?
So I think if it's just my take, this could probably be a celebration of the FinOps Foundation and kind of the community as a whole, the impact it's having on cloud spend. I think the shift that we're seeing regards like workload optimization, waste reduction, they're critical priorities like in the early phases of FinOps. But then it depends as an organization gets to be able to mature a little bit more. Focus probably starts to be able to shift over to making sure that as organizations continue to be able to scale, that all those hard-fought wins stick. And inefficiencies don't start to be able to creep back in. So that's why, at least my impression is optimization shifts from quick cost wins to actually building like sustainable governance frameworks to be able to make sure that those are long-term wins for the organization.
I had someone ask at the last conference, like, well, what happens after you start FinOps and you've done the optimization? Are you done? And it's like, no, this is like a long-term integration into product life cycles and business conversations and finance processes. And it lives and runs out of engineering, but it's integrated into so many things over time. Yeah. Let's go to the next one, which is about how we've seen teams in the last year, especially accelerate adoption of additional scopes of spending into their FinOps practices. The story that we heard over and over was like, hey, we love this visibility into cloud spend that you're giving and allocation and traceability and optimization, all these things. Can we also get that for other types of spend that we don't have that level of visibility and capabilities into? So for the panel, I mean, what's your experience? Have you seen other types of spend start to come into the FinOps practice? What capabilities are you applying? And let's start with Usha on this one.
Yeah, like I think I have seen the biggest scope creep, if you will, for FinOps from pure cloud-based managing and optimization through saying, hey, can we extend all of these best practices? Because in many ways, as I've been doing FinOps practices, frankly, it just feels like common sense. A lot of it is just common sense, except that it's in a structured manner and we have capabilities called out there. So it's very easy to look at it from a capability perspective to say, oh, can we do allocations on an on-prem? Can we do allocations from a SaaS management perspective? Because if you are centralizing all of your SaaS spend, are we able to allocate it and make sure the right consumers or users of that spend are able to take the cost hit? Are we able to do anomaly management on this? Are there any licenses that we are increasing cost on? Or even in the data center on the private cloud, right? Is there anything happening that should not be happening? And are we able to detect and manage it on a timely manner? Budgeting is something that has always existed across the board. And so that is something that's extendable here. Same thing with data ingestion and forecasting, right? So I think except for some of the capabilities that are very core to just FinOps from the cloud aspect, I think those capabilities can go across all of these areas. And as we see more and more integration between SaaS and licensing into the cloud space. As we see more integration or demarcation, if you will, from like the fintech services, you see more, like you called out in the survey, there's more data center or more private cloud. Maybe it's a security aspect, but that still needs to be governed. That still needs to be addressed.
And I'm not sure, totally agree. And I'm not sure if it was clear when Steve showed the capabilities earlier, that what capabilities are being applied here. Just to highlight, optimization was not in the top 7 capabilities applied for any of the other scopes, including AI. You know, it didn't even make the cut line for any of them, which really goes to show that aspect you say of like, yeah, there's been budgeting and forecasting things in the past, but FinOps brings an extra layer of visibility and granularity and real-time aspect to all these other capabilities, even before you get to trying to figure out how to optimize your SaaS or licensing or
right.
Cloud. Others on the panel, Brent, Dinesh, want to jump in? This one?
Yeah, I mean, for us, licensing and SaaS, we kind of look at it combined. And for us, at Workday, we are both in what we call as private cloud and data center. We also have that as combined. We call it private cloud. So we have all of this, and it's really, as a FinOps team, to apply the practices of public cloud on private cloud is always do more with less. Always is the mantra to say, how can I apply the practices on public cloud that you guys always show? This is the right sizing opportunity or whatever. How do I apply that? And it's a constant battle. I mean, it's just juggling with priorities. What do you focus on? As the survey pointed out, AI is creeping up. So yeah, while we have to look at all the spend in our private cloud, as well as this licensing SaaS, on top of that, we need to juggle and look at this new world of AI, which I'm not even a kindergarten level understanding on that one.
I just want to jump in slightly on this as well. I think these are very much different areas of infrastructure as well. I know people on the team, there's a FinOps for SaaS working group where like optimization points, you know, within cloud, you can optimize your cloud every day. You could make a change every day. It's quite more real time, where there are going to be very, you know, I think Bob coined it, financial moments where you can optimize, but you're limited in your optimization opportunities within your SaaS. If there's a contract renewal coming up, that's where you can make the optimization or put yourself in the best position for that, rather than continuously optimizing. So it's looking at kind of those those capabilities here is like applying them slightly differently potentially as well.
No, I just want to add one thing to what you said, Steve, like from the optimizing continuously perspective, right? Like you can look at license efficiency, use efficiency, right? Like if there's a license that somebody's using, especially from a SaaS aspect, if there's a license that's being used, but that's not been active for the past 60 days, there are ways to keep track of that and make sure that you take that away from them and give it to somebody else. So there is an element of optimization, not at the level that we do cloud optimization, but there's definitely some element of making sure we are efficiently using the resources that we're paying for.
I think that's it. Oh, go on.
Yeah, Usha, if I can just layer on really, really quickly. I love that because it's basically all of the muscle memory that we've started to be able to build up through cloud optimization. Then we find actually scales to these other areas of the business that incur additional costs. So it's once again, now that we've got some of the memory and the know-how, we're able to take it and apply to other areas of the business and be very impactful.
I think that's spot on. It's like a muscle that the organization develops, that it gets strong. And it's like, well, why not apply it? You know, and the example somebody said in one of the working groups was, you know, FinOps is like a car that's designed to go 200 miles an hour to manage cloud. It's easy for that car to slow down to 45 to manage other types of spend, right? But something that's designed to go 45 is hard to speed up to 200, right? So why not apply it? So Brent, you were last in there, and you know, you're in financial services. This slide showed that essentially AI spend is going everywhere, starting with public cloud, huge amount there, you know, smaller amount in SaaS, although large for financial services, see that jump up. But financial services in particular was doing the most, you know, AI investment into hardware, private cloud data center, et cetera. So what's your view on how this comes together in FinOps land?
So AI is an interesting animal. I think that what we're seeing is a lot of companies that thought that they had a really solid grasp of their cloud costs. Now that we start to be able to kind of step into the world of AI, it introduces a completely new layer of complexity in our tech investment. So the shift now is really starting to be able to be like, hey, how do we understand the total cost of our AI workloads? Especially like some of the trade-offs that we have to be able to make between, training different types of models, models at different scales, weighing, training them on-prem, cloud environments. And I'm not even going to get into the absolutely nuanced world of inference. So given kind of the high cost of these expensive GPU resources, I think we're starting to be able to see a lot of companies really taking a step back to be able to assess which infrastructure delivers the best balance of cost, performance, and scalability for their AI needs. So I guess as AI spend grows, defining success from a FinOps perspective is probably going to mean making sure that we help support all of the personas involved to be able to help create that target experience, with an eye towards, can we help them select the right environment, the right model type, and the right model size?
That larger persona aspect is becoming such a key thing across all of these increased scopes of spend, but especially, and that's why we're seeing the community and the foundation doing a lot of work groups around FinOps or AI concepts, because we've got to apply FinOps concepts to different types of spend and then bring in different groups who are now managing AI or managing licensing or managing SaaS. So that definitely is a fascinating aspect of FinOps, is everyone's job, and we've got to get all those people together collaborating. Dinesh, how about for you? How do you see this playing out in your organization?
Yeah, I mean, for us, that top bar, public cloud, is what we, kind of reflects of where Workday is. For us, you know, data and security of that data is primary. So for us to have all the information of what model is being used by which workload, all of that data is enterprise, extremely secure data. And as you know, in AI, data is the new currency. So instead of pushing all those rich data set into public cloud, we took the approach of building our own homegrown tool where we take the numerator, which is your billing data. No matter how much tags you tag, it's never going to be that rich. We bring that in and merge with our petabyte sized, be it model training or which workload, which customer used, what data set, to try and blend that together to be able to do just the basics of costing. And then to say, okay, now that I know how much it costs for that particular agent or particular use case, did it generate the return for the cost? That's what we are looking at in the next 12 months. But our approach is to really get to the fundamentals. That graph that Steve, you showed is absolutely the one. We're looking at what is being spent, try and merge with the labels that we have inherently on our observability tool to try and make sense of the data to begin with. And this thing is changing so fast. Instead of building our own infrastructure, which gets outdated very quickly, we took the approach of leveraging the hyperscalers. They're investing billions and billions of dollars and just leveraging that.
And that aspect of AI spend over time is going to have to move to value focus and unit economic focus is exactly what we're expecting to see as the optimization starts to come in. Just moving through a couple more questions for the panel as we have about 5 more minutes. We asked, what do you need to achieve your top priorities? And these were free-form answers that were grouped into buckets. In this one, we saw organizational alignment, while still the top one, actually came down, which implied that there is more organizational alignment happening, hopefully through the work of all of you doing better governance and leadership support in your organizations. But we saw a big increase in planned investment into upskilling, tooling, automation, all the things to drive more productivity from the FinOps team. Let's maybe go to you, Brent, first on this one. What's your perspective on these things and what you're seeing?
See, I think a lot of this really probably comes down to, once again, like organizational size, cloud spend, maturity. Like in a general sense, we could probably state that organizations start with trying to be able to build the relationships, build the basic visibility into the cloud spend. as they start to be able to mature, like their needs to be able to go through and actually figure out how do I do more of a fine-grained optimization start to be able to change as well, which requires a greater investment in tooling, visibility, to be able to support all the automation and governance initiatives we talked about earlier.
Makes sense. Usha, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, tooling requires investment, and investment requires executive approval. And for also being able to leverage that tooling that we use, we need to have organizational alignment from an executive sponsorship perspective. We need to have more people willing to kind of work with us and build on that, right? So I'm not really surprised to see these coming through as like the top priorities. And again, if you go back to that first slide that we were talking about where governance is increasing, one thing that we did notice there was also organizational alignment was one of the top items, and it is kind of slowly going down, which kind of is represented here too. And so as we mature, and like Brent called out, right, like as we mature in the organizations, I think it goes from leveraging third-party tools and like the whole build versus buy aspect, and then that combined with improving our capabilities and organizational alignment, it just makes sense that all of these are where they are coming out as a top priorities. And then in some ways, if you're able to leverage your bread and butter to go and convince your management to say like, hey, this is a savings I've already achieved, so here can we leverage that to get our tooling in place? Can we leverage that to get our tools built in place, or even like, get that executive sponsorship to say like, there is this aspect of success that we have achieved here, let's go get it from the other areas. And I think it's just a mixed bag of all of these priorities working together for us to be successful.
Okay, so we're on the last question here as we're getting near the stretch. I'm going to ask all three of you this. We'll start with Usha, then Brent, and we can end with Dinesh. But the takeaway here was practitioners really seem to be asked to being stretched themselves thin to deliver more and more outputs on more FinOps capabilities, reducing efforts on very few of them. And this is not even talking about additional scopes of spend, but being asked to do more with essentially the same amount of staff. So how do you see this playing out? What's the approach that can keep them sane and surviving, and also driving the business value outputs that companies need? We'll start with you, Usha.
I mean, unfortunately, this seems to be the theme: just do more with the same or more with less. And that's something I've heard in all of the different organizations that I've worked with, and it's in the FinOps space as well. And as we see more maturity in the FinOps space, but then we don't really see investment in the number of practitioners doing the actual work. So it's again coming to say, okay, you were able to take care of this amount of space. Now, why don't you try doing the same magic that you showed in this space in waste reduction and optimization, but add on these other areas without taking away that we still need to continue looking at the current spaces, right? So the whole, like we went from FinOps to public cloud to SaaS and private cloud and data centers. So that's all added responsibility that's coming in, and not necessarily with added support or investment. And it's definitely something that I've seen across the board, no matter which place I've worked with. And I think leveraging more AI, leveraging more automation, leveraging more governance, making sure that what is coming in is clean, and then we are focusing only on the existing infrastructure and cleaning it up there, is going to be the way to go. Like, you need to have your governance in place. You need to have your tagging standards. You need to have your, your optimization as part of your design and your build. That way you're not overloading the people having to go do the cleanup after things have been deployed. The other aspect of it that I personally feel very passionate about is the whole concept of how do we ensure the people doing the FinOps practice are also growing from a career aspect. Like, you do not want to be stuck being a FinOps practitioner the entire time and space. You want to be able to expand. You want to be able to grow, take that capability that you currently groomed and matured into other spaces and use that muscle memory that we talked about earlier and do the same magic in other areas. So from a career growth aspect as well, I think it would really help. And then having more people buy into the whole concept of FinOps and the optimization, the efficiency that we build in will definitely help. Then you can just decentralize.
Brent, quick word there, and then Dinesh.
Yeah, it doesn't come as much of a surprise that FinOps practitioners are finding themselves stretched thin. It's an incredible amount of time and energy required to be able to sustain the relationships for organizational alignment, all the system integrations, in addition to being able to actually perform, high impact optimizations. In order to be able to remain effective at scale, like the priority starts to be able to shift from getting visibility into actually acting onto some of the insights. I guess at a core, like, can you avoid some of this being stretched thin by driving efficiency through automation, workload optimization, cost-aware engineering? Kind of in a nutshell, could you turn data into decisions, not just connecting systems? At the end of the day, probably we're going to see that most successful FinOps teams are probably going to be the ones that actually are able to focus their brain power on making the most impactful cost performance optimizations to be able to see the biggest returns. Alternative to that, I guess, being stretched thin is getting stuck in the weeds of making countless integration efforts without really seeing a lot of meaningful progress on any of them.
Makes sense. And before we get into the Q&A and conversations, Dinesh, what's your final word on this?
Yeah, I know we are over time. Just real quick. This is our result of our success as a FinOps practice, that the top management wants more from us. But to be sensitive, FinOps is influence without authority. So as a practitioner, you don't want to be, every time you go reach out to an engineer or a leader in the engineering team, don't want them to be saying, oh no, these FinOps guys are against haunting me. So there is a balance to be struck. But the FinOps practitioners, they are in the limelight. They get the recognition. They got a lot of learning opportunity. So leverage that is what I'll say. There's a lot of growth opportunities, learning opportunities, not only from the FinOps Foundation courses, but learn Kubernetes. I'll say my team kind of understands Kubernetes really well. There is growth opportunities in AI. So there is a lot to learn. So that keeps us all engaged and motivated. But to do more with less is always a challenge.
Good news is, I think this says there's lots of job security for those being asked to handle all these things, because there's just more to manage and more spend in all those areas. So thank you all for the panel. Please stick around. We're going to get into Q&A and we'll get a lot of questions for you. Very excited to also note, if you haven't seen it yet, data.finops.org just went live with the updated data. So everything that we looked at today and more, including commentary, is on data.finops.org for everyone to take a look at and share online as you like. The FinOps topics are evolving. These are the things that we run working groups on, that we run through our events. You will see a net new one on here. Thanks to this data, value through optimization is now back on the FinOps topics list with this increased push here. We're going to see additional working group outputs. We're going to see more talks. We're going to see a lot more focus in that area, as well as the others as they continue to evolve FinOps for AI, FinOps scopes, FinOps is everyone's job, etc. So check out this page on the website. There are talks and assets associated with each of these topic areas. As an example, here's some of the recent assets that just came out on FinOps for AI, some specific vertical ones. There's public sector, government related FinOps best practices, as well as other groups coming right now, like FinOps for SaaS and a lot of other items. Some other event announcements. Everybody liked the reInvent, what we did this last year so well with the morning keynote watch party. We're going to carry this through to other cloud conferences as well. So right now we have 3 cloud conferences planned for the year. First one is April 9th at Google Next. We're going to have a keynote watch party on site at the Mandalay Bay. We'll have a lunch, networking, and afternoon product sessions with the clouds at each of these. So please sign up for those when they go live here shortly. And we are also bringing back the first Women in FinOps event of 2025. This has been a great 2-year long-running series for us that is happening on March 5th with a great panel of women. I wanted to call out Shaheen, because Shaheen is actually in the mentoring program that we're doing and has been sharing a lot of her great experiences from working with Natalie Daly, who is her mentor in the FinOps Foundation mentoring program. So great opportunity to get plugged into this community. It is focused on women in FinOps, but open to women and allies and anybody who wants to attend. There's also a new training announcement, which is that we are building FinOps for AI training coming soon. The working groups are working on best practices around this. There's 5 work streams happening that will make their way into training. That'll be announced shortly later in the year. The first views of this outputs will happen at the London Summit on April 1st in terms of content. And last of my slides before we get into conversation, wanted to give a big thank you, as always. People sometimes ask me at events, this foundation thing, is that like a part-time thing for you that you do on the side? And I'm like, no, the foundation is basically one of the busiest startups that I've ever worked in. I've been full-time at the Linux Foundation for almost 5 years now. Our staff is almost 30 people around the world who are also full-time working on these items, covering a ton of outputs and a ton of work to support this community. So big thank you to the FinOps Foundation staff globally and everybody who makes all of this possible. And as always on the summits, I'd like to give a special shout out to Suha Shim, who runs the summit program and puts all of this together for all of you.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. I hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoy sharing all of these amazing FinOps stories, best practices, and expertise. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave comments and questions for our speakers. Check out more FinOps content on our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support.